A, a client or a customer will give a piece of their paycheck to be comfortable and energy efficient. But when indoor air quality and the quality of life of children and family members is involved, they'll sell the farm. So there's lots of guys in the industry, and they have like what they call the trinity of indoor air quality, and it revolves around ventilation, humidity, and filtration. Well, in my teachings and my philosophy, and the guys that are learning from me, we actually have six. And so it starts off with thermal comfort. We're in the comfort business. I mean, if you want to start somewhere as an HVAC tech, hey, thermal comfort. Now, how you achieve that, there's a whole sub list of things, but we're in the comfort business. And when you're dealing with indoor air quality clients, how they feel as far as being comfortable in the space will exaggerate or exacerbate the things that they are experiencing because of the condition they have. So we go thermal comfort and then filtration, right in our wheelhouse, right? We'll talk about humidity control, lack of or too much, right? So humidity control, then we bring in ventilation, and then we get a little bit outside of HVAC and we talk about building pressures and what's going on. And so we do pressure mapping and moisture mapping within the structure. But you know what? Most of the time that's controlled with a fan or our HVAC or ventilation. And so it's right in our wheelhouse, but understanding how to take those measurements so you can design properly. And then last but not least is pollutant identification and source control. And so those are my 6 pillars. If we can get a handle on that, we're well on our way to be becoming IAQ professionals in our field. Now, of course, that's just scratching the surface. If we get on the other end of it, identifying and speciating different microbials and different things, and really understanding infiltration and pathways, that gets kind of deep. We want to see or bring to light the unseen. And so when we're in that world of things, that's a whole different aspect. But hey, if we get a handle on those 6 and really just understand that, the transition's easy into some of the other stuff.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It does, and I want to come back to that too, because investigation is a key part to your foundation here. I want to take a step back real quick because I think this is so important because of the new population of techs and contractors coming into the trade. What would you? How would someone get started, right? How do they? So they got an HVAC contractor that just started, or maybe a new tech, and they are going in these houses. They're seeing these questions being asked of them. Where do they start, John? Like what can we tell them to do to help themselves start answering these questions that they're getting?
First of all, you have to be willing. All right. And unfortunately, technicians are held to a standard by the company. So it's got to be top down. And I've had technicians, man, take my class. Oh, John, this is fantastic. I actually went to a company and presented to the whole company in Columbus, Georgia. And they were all fired up and like, dude, this is awesome. And then nothing. I talked to a guy the other day. It's been 2 years. It's like, have you implemented any of it? It's like, no, management doesn't care. And so the technician can care, and depending on the company, it's a culture.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So they make a conscious decision not to go that route, but in your mind, what's your argument for saying that a contractor needs to be involved in? What's the argument to be involved in indoor air quality solutions? What would you say? So maybe that guy in particular, what are you waiting for? I know it's your instant reaction. It's been 2 years. What is the idea? Why should they care about IAQ and the solutions?
So, I did an article in Snips magazine a while back, and then I did another one with NCI on high performance HVAC. And there's been kind of a shift in the industry, and so technicians are really, really good at turning wrenches, solving problems, and fixing stuff, right? That's what we're really good at. And so, but that takes the work. The way I do indoor air quality, there's a lot of work there. It's not easy. And so, unfortunately, we're in pursuit of the all-American dollar. Now, don't get me wrong here. I'll talk a little bit. Pursue the all-American dollar, and then we need to just turn calls in and out, in and out. A technician's given 10 calls today, and they're loaded up, and all I want you to do is get in there, fix the repair, usually a unitary, take it or leave it repair, and get to the next one. And then the technician's looking at his schedule, and then his kid's got a t-ball baseball game, and he wants to make that game because he should. And so there's this pressure just to turn the calls. And so that's a problem. So a technician can have that hunger and that thirst for knowledge and want to do stuff, but it's a top-down decision. And if they're not allowed, then that becomes a problem. And it's what we're facing. So our industry is looking for that quick, and some of these manufacturers of said air purification devices make it very friendly and very appealing. Hey, you know what? We're going to sell this to you, right? Our marketing says it's the silver bullet going to fix everything. You sell this, your markup is going to be very handsome. And tell you what, some of the bigger companies, the franchise types, I'm not going to say any names, but you know who they are like, hey, every one of these you sell, I'll give you $100. So they're getting a great incentive from the manufacturer to sell their product. Then they spiff the technician, and then they're selling 10 a day in thinking that, hey, I just did an IAQ job. And then they just stuck a device in the system without even knowing anything about it, or what they're treating or anything. And so that's where our industry is, but I'm trying to change that one contractor at a time.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you go back to even that, even some of the companies you've trained before that aren't doing anything now. So the message for management would be what? Like what, doesn't this tie back to the almighty dollar, the solutions in a way, even if it's done correctly in your mind through building science? There is a bottom line here to be.
Absolutely. So since you asked, here's where we're at. A client or a customer will give a piece of their paycheck to be comfortable and energy efficient. But when indoor air quality and the quality of life of children and family members is involved, they'll sell the farm. They will absolutely sell the farm. And this is not, so I say this so we don't prey on that, but we have to understand that. That when the health and well-being of their children or family members are involved, they will absolutely sell the farm to make sure that they're happy and healthy and safe and all that stuff. Now, that being said, there's some spiritual principles here, and I teach this in my class, and I really emphasize that. One, we don't worship money. Okay, we don't worship money, but money is the gasoline that fuels the engine that is our business. Okay, so you have to keep the lights on, and you have to be able to be profitable. So that being said, there's a paradigm shift here, and I teach this. So when we're looking at indoor air quality, we need to go in with that's our emphasis. We have to have empathy and compassion and listen to they just want to be heard. Clients, customers just want to be heard and listened to. And so if we do that, believe me, the money will come. And in our process, you said earlier that the investigation process is very important. Well, we have keyed a phrase or a process, if you will, indoor air quality IAQ: investigate, analyze, and quote. You have to do all three. You have to do them in order, and you can't skip any of them. And so investigate is our discovery, but our industry goes right to quote.
It does.
Right?
It does. Yes.
Oh, hey, we got a customer that says they've got some indoor air quality concerns. They don't know what's going on in their house. Hey, here's this product that we're selling, go over there and put that in. And so out of that, I coined a phrase from the medical community that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Yep.
Our HVAC industry is guilty of that every single day by throwing products at these people.
Yeah.
And so I often during my class, I say, hey, anybody got kids? And they're like, oh yeah, I got kids. And I actually get up and do a little role play in my live class. It's like, hey, how old are your kids? Oh, well, they're like 3 and 6. I'm like, oh, that's a great age. You know what? So what if they were sick? I'm not talking about COVID. I'm just like, hey, they got a fever, the runny nose, the scratchy throat. They're miserable. And you're miserable because they're miserable. And so it's like, your heart's bleeding for them. And that's like, they're your kids. You love them. And so you do anything for them. And so you take them and you go to the doctor. You go in, you fill out the little paperwork. The receptionist says, go ahead and have a seat. Doctor will be with you in a minute. And the door opens up and the doctor peeks his head out and throws you a bottle of prescription and says, hey, let me know in a month how that works. Close the door. And there you are. How would you feel? There's no difference in what our industry is doing right now with these products. We have no idea what the symptoms are, no idea what the conditions are. Just, hey, our manufacturer of this product has a sticker on the box says it will take care of everything.
Yeah.
Nothing further than from the truth.
And we're very careful, even when I'm doing training with our clients too. It's like, there is no silver bullet. You can't preach a silver bullet in every, like we said in the beginning, every home and every occupant is different. And you're not selling them you don't want to sell something they don't need. Who wants to do that? That's just it's not good business practice. It's just not right. Right. So to your point, the IAQ, I like that. Investigate, analyze, and quote. And correct me if I'm wrong, the most rudimentary form of investigation is a conversation with the homeowner, right? I mean, that's where it starts.
Absolutely. That's where it starts. So the discovery phase, I often send a questionnaire, and I know you guys have a questionnaire on your site too. I ask a lot of the same questions. I take it a little deeper into what's going on with the client. But from that, I like to send it ahead of time because I want them to take their time. I want them to discuss it with their significant other or family members and then fill it out. A lot of times you'll show up and hand them the questionnaire and we've all done it. Go and just start checking boxes real quick. No, I really want them to have some thought put into it. And so that's how it starts. I just did just a quick story because I got a bunch of them. I was working with a client in Port Huron, Michigan. They're a contractor. They're involved with the new flat rate. They've taken my class. They're all in on indoor air quality. They're really doing well. They had a high-end client or a high-level client came to them. And so I said, hey, did you send them the questionnaire? And the technician says, oh, yeah, I did. I'm like, awesome. So do we have it? And so he hands it to me, and it didn't look filled out very well. So we get there. And so this gentleman worked in the oil refineries and retired from them. He's compromised from his exposure. So when we talk about compromise, so you're subjected to pollutants. From there, you become sensitized to those pollutants. And then from there, you moved into compromise because of long-term exposure. So those are the 3 levels. You're first subjected to, then you're sensitized, and then compromised. He was definitely compromised. So when we got there, we're asking questions. He's sitting at the table, and it's all about him. Hey, what's this, and how you feeling, and when does when you go out, and he feels great. And so it was laser focused on him. In the den, we hear this little voice, and it's his wife, and she says, does anybody care how I'm feeling? Oh,
mic drop. That's like
and yes, ma'am, come on in. And then we had this conversation. She says, I sing in the church choir. And lately, and she starts off by saying, oh, I used to think my husband was a little cuckoo because he's experienced, but now I realize that there's a lot going on. And she says, yeah, I like to sing at the church choir. And lately I haven't been able to sing, and I just want to sing in the choir. And so then I talked to the technician. He's like, oh, well, we filled the questionnaire out over the phone. And it was an aha moment for him because it was 2 technicians and myself, right? And so this is a teaching moment. And I said, you see how important it is to get that there? And we're all just standing there just like, Oh my goodness. So that's how it starts, a questionnaire, and then we have a set some set data to gather, and preliminarily, I like to just run an air advice to get some numbers. And you got to start the conversation. It's only a 30-minute snapshot, and they had done that, and at least that starts a conversation and gives you a direction, and then that leads into they actually sold some discovery using our app, and we'll get to that in a bit. But so the discovery set some set measurements, what's in the air, maybe looking at existing mechanical, the building part of it, air samples, and then system performance. I always like to measure BTUs, sensible latent airflow, all that stuff, mechanical stuff. But anyway, after we gather all that data, we pull it to the next level, and that's the analyze. So you have to look at the data and compare the technical data to what the client's experiencing, and that's when you start connecting dots.
So you just made the intangible tangible, right? You made the invisible visible by doing exactly that, right?
Yes, and how deep you go is going to depend on the contractor and how far along they are in their journey. I've got just a ton of testing equipment, and so I can take it deep. But you can always pull samples and get them to a lab, or if it's something a little bit above your pay grade, you can employ a CIH to come in and really get a handle on it, so you don't miss anything. But you analyze the data and you compare it to what the customer's feeling, and all of a sudden you start connecting dots. You
build a story. A story starts to emerge, right?
A storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. A story emerges.
And so once you do that, then and only then are you ready to quote. And so your discovery is going to point to a few things. So you might have, hey, we got high particulates, so we need to get better filtration. They're experiencing some things. Is it just filtration, or is it leaky ductwork, or is it building pressures? We're a little bit high in humidity, so dehumidification. In Michigan, they've got the extremes. I know you do too in New York. So you may have to do dehumidification and humidification, right, for the different seasons. Then fresh air. Next thing you know, you've got a multi-tiered scope of work. And so then each thing has to have a price tag put to it, each step. And then people are, our industry is so laser focused on equipment.
That's been our narrative forever, right? It's been our narrative as a trade. Did you hear me even
mention equipment? I didn't even mention equipment, and I teach this in my classes. Like, we go through all this thing, and they're like, well, and I said, after you've gone through all that and you have a scope of work that's going to address everything, it's then you can have a conversation about the equipment. And it's like, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we have a fantastic scope of work. I think we're addressing all, and but unfortunately, due to the age of your equipment and the condition, it won't support these options. Easy conversation to have. The last thing we would have to have happen would be there a catastrophic failure in your equipment and you're left unprotected.